Today, GDP per capita turns negative as households get hit over the head. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news. Well, Australia's first quarter GDP missed analysts' expectations, with overall real GDP growing only 0.2% over the quarter versus 0.3% expected. And now some economists like at CBA are calling a 50-50 probability of Australia going into recession later in the year. But the most interesting and important piece of information related to GDP per capita. Because of ongoing strong population growth, thanks to immigration, the per capita GDP fell 0.2%. Labour productivity GDP, that's hours worked, fell 0.3%, with real unit labour costs rising 0.1% over the quarter. This decline in productivity and slight increase in real unit labour costs will have the wage price spiral inflation going into hyperdrive. Importantly for the RBA, consumption expenditure by households and governments was subdued, with a combined contribution of 0.1 percentage points to the GDP, and household consumption was up 0.2% but slowed as discretionary spending fell below essential spending for the first time since the COVID lockdowns. Government expenditure grew 0.1%. Now, household consumption per capita was negative, as I said, and specifically on household consumption, the ABS said that household spending rose 0.2%. That's the weakest quarterly result since the fall recorded during the COVID-19 Delta variant lockdowns in September 2021. Growth in essential spending increased 1.1%, while discretionary spending fell 1% as the cost of living pressures exhausted residual post-lockdown demand. Essential spending was led by electricity, gas and other fuels, up 5.2%, due to the end of Queensland's cost of living rebate, which saw increased government consumption on behalf of households in the December quarter. Thus, households are spending more on things they need, the essentials, while cutting back on things they want, the discretionary items. And, of course, this then puts more pressure on the overall economy. And as Westpac put it, the Australian consumer continues to come under intense pressure from a combination of rising interest rates, reduced fiscal support and increases in the cost of living. Around income, the picture was mixed, with wages supporting a decent rise in nominal incomes, but the gain was outstripped by a strong and unexpected increase in consumer prices, reducing savings again required to fund the slight lift in spending. Total wages income posted a robust 2.3% rise, to be up 10.1% over the year. That's the strongest annual growth since 2007. And total hours worked rose 0.6%, with hourly compensation up 1.6%. While the net result was positive, the mix is not particularly promising from the point of view of future spending prospects. And monetary tightening had another material drag on disposable incomes, with interest payments up 10.6% over the quarter to $27.8 billion in quarter one. That's an all-time high in absolute dollar terms and accounts for 7.5% of nominal disposable income. That's a 9-year high. The rise effectively took 0.7 percentage points off disposable incomes in the quarter and a whopping 3.8 percentage points off disposable income growth over the past 4 quarters. And there's another fiscal drag too, relating to income tax payments, which went up another 3.3% after jumping 7.2% in the fourth quarter. Payments are up 14% over the year and are now accounting for 21.7% of disposable income, a 21-year high. This reflects both rising employment, which sees more people covered by income tax requirements, and rising wages putting more earnings into the higher marginal tax brackets. These drags pared back the gain in nominal disposable income after interest and tax to just 0.8%. And while this was better than the 0.7% contraction in the fourth quarter, it was not enough to outpace a 1.2 percentage point rise in prices So household disposable income in real purchasing power terms is still contracting, down 0.3%, and is now down a whopping 4% over the year, which is the largest annual decline since June 1983. So all this implies that consumers again are using savings buffers against the real income hit. The savings ratio, that's the proportion of income unspent, declined from 4.4% to 3.7%. That's a 15-year low. And the fall effectively freed up an additional $2 billion in funding for expenditure. And this means, of course, that the scope for further falls in savings to continue buffering shocks to income is now very, very limited. The savings rate is now down well below the par of 6 to 6.5% and notionally implies or drawdown on the excess savings accumulated during the pandemic, which was estimated at around $250 billion. That's running down at about $9 billion over the quarter. So you can see here that things are not looking good. And the GDP per capita number is really the one to watch. This, of course, is because we are bringing more people into the country, and that means that some of the top line numbers are still growing, but on an individual household basis, households are continuing to go backwards, with the costs of living and the focus on non-discretionary spending the order of the day. And that means there's less capacity for savings, less capacity for discretionary spending, and that's going to have a significant economic drag down the track, sufficient probably to cause a recession in relatively short order. And we know that the RBA has not yet necessarily stopped its lifting cycle, so there is more pain ahead. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.